Hello, listeners. Mallory Wilsey here, Chief Producer of the Enrollify Network, and I want to take just a moment to tell you about another show on our podcast network that I co-host called Higher Ed Pulse. Higher Ed Pulse is your weekly spotlight on the latest in higher education marketing and enrollment. From headline news to social posts, insider insights to industry observations, join yours truly and Seth Odell as we share top stories from across the world of higher education. Each bite-sized 15-minute episode is packed with personality and designed to bring what's top of mind to the top of your feed. You can subscribe to the show by visiting podcast.enrollify.org or just search Higher Ed Pulse wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to Visionary Voices, the College President's Playbook, a podcast that serves as your backstage pass to an uplifting and positive view into the collaborative playbook of higher education presidents and their senior leaders. I'm your host, Dr. Brian Gross. Join me weekly for discussions with some of the best minds in higher education leadership. From presidents to provosts, enrollment managers to CFOs, CIOs to chief diversity officers, this show is your ticket to the most future-forward strategies that are impacting real results on college campuses today. Each week, I will be posting highlights and insights from our show, so let's connect. Visionary Voices is part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Welcome to Visionary Voices, the College President's Playbook. I am really pleased to be here for this very special episode. We have two college and university presidents with us today. First, Dr. Sandra Doran, president of Bay Path University, and Dr. Stephen Healey, president of Cambridge College. Now, for our audience, you may have read recently that Bay Path University and Cambridge College have endeavored in what is a very future-focused and innovative partnership where they have announced a merger of the two institutions. President Doran, can you provide some background on how the idea of merging Bay Path University and Cambridge College came about?
Yes, as your audience may know, Bay Path University, we have multiple student profiles. So for example, we have an undergraduate women's college, residential and commuter, that's here in Longmeadow. We have what we call the American Women's College, which is an online college for women who want to complete their baccalaureate degrees. And then we have graduate programs for men and women. And in fact, our graduate division is our largest division, coeducational, of course, primarily in three areas. So health and natural sciences, education, psychology and the humanities, and management and technology and innovation. So as we began thinking about a year ago now about what was the future of Bay Path? What was Bay Path going to look like in 10 years? So last July 2023, we underwent as an institution a SWOT analysis. And we said, all right, what are our opportunities for growth? And do we see those opportunities right in front of us? And we identified roughly 6 opportunities. And as we began thinking about these opportunities, the first was to grow the graduate programs because high demand. We are an institution that is career focused, and so we wanted to be market ready. So we began thinking about that. We began thinking about our identity as an aspiring Hispanic serving institution. We began thinking about our aspiration to better serve the employers, both locally and in the region. And we had, 3 or 4 other of these opportunities. And then we said, all right, looking at the world around us, we have several approaches that we could take to maximize and achieve these goals. We developed a matrix and we said, all right, these are the things that are on our aspiration list. And we began looking at colleges and universities saying, who can help us grow? Because as we believe that a college must be 5,000 students or more to be able to be financially sustainable going into the future. So we're currently at 2,700. So we began looking for a partner or partners who could help us reach not just that 5,000 goal, but provide opportunities, more opportunities, greater opportunities for our students and hopefully the students, faculty, staff, alums with whom we chose to partner. We looked at dozens of colleges and universities, and Cambridge College emerged as the college who could help us grow, where we could provide additional opportunities to our students and equally importantly to their students. That at a high level is how this partnership emerged.
I'm hearing you say at BayPath, really being clear on mission alignment, your values, your purpose, and then talking about, I'm hearing this engaging of the community, doing this SWOT analysis and thinking about 6 different opportunities for BayPath to achieve its strategic growth. With this really important idea, 5,000 or more students is going to be the financially viable place for BayPath. Let's switch over to you, President Healey. We just heard a lot from President Doran. Give me the Cambridge College side of things. How did you reach this point?
It's so interesting to hear Sandy talk about that process because I knew there was a background and way that they came to come in conversation with us. Frankly, I had never heard, the full reveal on their strategic backdrop. We had a very similar thing going on at Cambridge College, and we were looking for an institution that we could partner that would believe along with us on all the important things President Doran mentioned. This would need to be an institution that was 100% or very, very closely aligned to our mission, that focused on adult learners, that we believed that coming into partnership with would just give us a really extended future. This is not a one-year plan that BayPath and Cambridge College are undertaking here. This is the 10 to 20 year thinking type of plan. And so every approach that BayPath has taken toward us is just a further reveal. I see it now in light of the way President Doran described their process in the background, because we've hit all of those things square. And we're really in close alignment on all these important matters. That's why this is being the success that it is. And I'm really delighted to be in this conversation with you, Brian.
I think the other thing, Brian, that President Healey and I talk about regularly is how bold and innovative action is needed in higher education. Presidents, boards, faculty, staff have to be prepared to act courageously, boldly, with conviction, thinking about the long-term future of their institutions. And both of these boards, BayPath University trustees, Cambridge College trustees, knew that this partnership required courage, it required boldness, but it was also the right thing to do. And so it's an exciting convergence. It's an exciting convergence of 2 great boards thinking innovatively about the future.
I love this so much. The part of the whole thrust of this show is to provide a counter narrative to this idea of who would want to be a college president, to try to share some of the joys of being a higher education leader. However, I could imagine that there had to have been significant challenges on both of your parts, particularly around bringing this idea to other senior leaders on campus and getting buy-in from members of the community. So how can you give me some of the nitty gritty? How did you bring senior leadership and then members of the faculty and staff on board with this initiative? And what were some of the obstacles you faced during that process?
Beginning with our, strategic plan, every university has a strategic plan. And part of our strategic plan, of course, was to evaluate our strengths and opportunities. So having done that a year ago, I've spent the last year talking with key stakeholders, talking about opportunities. We hold what we call a community presentation and conversation at BayPath once a month. And the purpose of those conversations is to talk about strategic initiatives. It's also to talk about operational issues. Of course, it is, right? Learners come first. We call our
Mhm.
students learners because we have a vision of pathways and lifelong learning that begins at early college and goes all the way through doctoral and beyond, right? Everyone is constantly retooling, upskilling, refining, right? Their toolbox of skills. And so we at BayPath have been talking for a year, really. And in fact, we were founded as a career focused institution back in 1897. So over the course of the last 127 years, we've been talking about what are those characteristics and opportunities that differentiate ourselves and make our students market ready, because that's why they come to BayPath, is because they want a career that will change the trajectory of their life, their family lives, and their communities. And so this is a conversation that we have frequently here. So having these strategic conversations early and often, I believe, is absolutely critical. If we do nothing, this is what we will look like in 10 years. If we do A, B, or C, these will be the opportunities for faculty, staff, and students in, over the next 10 years and beyond and beyond. So for me, it's that constant conversation with stakeholders. And we would have these conversations with trustees, faculty, staff, external advisors, saying, uh, how how do we ensure that our students have the best opportunities going forward? And so when you begin talking about students, Brian, we begin and end every conversation with what's best for students. Then those are conversations that are easier to have.
I love this. There's so much that you brought out, and I just want our listeners to understand probably one of the most important things. You're thinking about mergers. Um, Communication is required both early and often. And I love this idea of making it clear to the members of your community what your future looks like in its current state. And I would assume there's lots of revenue projections that are being shared in that current state. And then engaging the community and saying, if we want to change this, what is it that we have to do together?
Brian, I'll just layer on here. I mean, President Doran puts her money where her mouth is as well. In the context of this partnership that we're forming, it's been all about the kind of people business that Sandy's answer reveals. It's been an ongoing series of conversations on both sides. Brian, you also hit a theme that I've been thinking on for a long time, and I promise not to hijack your podcast here, but higher education being under doubt is a continuation of doubt that's been placed on education as a whole in this country for at least 15 or 20 years. And it's intensifying. And now also doubt about leadership of higher education. And quite frankly, it's as close to straight out wrong as one could find. These criticisms that are levied against what BayPath and Hartwick and Cambridge College are doing, which is giving students and learners the skills, the knowledge, the aptitudes, the practices, the methods to claim their futures. It's what it's about. Higher education is a conversational business. We're in it together. We work together. As president of the college, the quickest answer to the question that you ask is, how do you bring people on board? Is that you actually bring them into the boardroom and you talk to them, and you don't know everything that they all know collectively. You take their advice, their opinions, their thoughts into careful consideration. There are times that the leader has to make a final decision, but it's almost always the consolidation of all the wisdom that was shared in the conversations leading up to it, or it wouldn't predict success. And this is why BayPath and Cambridge are getting along so swimmingly. We talk a lot. to each other. We listen to each other and we take advantage of wisdom from each side.
I think you raise a really important point, which is around culture, right? Culture alignment is important. It has to be tended to. It is not automatic. And so as a result, we have several people who are really thinking about how to best take the best of both cultures and create a unified whole.
Yeah, it's interesting. I saw online that the two of you got together with members of your community to talk together with them. And I also saw recently that a group of leaders from Bay Path travel to the Puerto Rico campus of Cambridge College. So it seems like there's some real intentionality behind thinking about the merging of those cultures. So, Steve, I am wondering, just getting back to the Cambridge side, and I bet you some of our listeners are wondering, how did the faculty members at Cambridge College react when this news was brought out?
Faculty and staff reacted very, very positively. When this news came out, the dominant reaction was that this is an answer that we've been looking for. And of course, when the news was breaking, people had known about Bay Path. It's a relatively small state. We know each other. We know Bay Path well. But no one over here would have thought about Bay Path in this context. That took some getting to know and thinking through. And then people's process would be this: will this serve and support our students? Answer resoundingly yes. Will this align to the things that we find most important? Answer a resounding yes. Do the people that work at Bay Path have similar outlooks to their professions as we have here? And it's so interesting, Brian, that when we get together as groups, that right down to the personality types, the kind of people that form and grow a career at a Bay Path are very similar to the kind of people that form and grow a career at Cambridge. So when you're in a period and those things become obvious, that you latch onto those and you grow forward with them. And that's what's going on here with the faculty and staff. And we've also met with students. President Doran and I met with a large group of students over here to talk about this. And they're seeing it as well. Now, am I to say that 100% of every group? No. And that would never be true in any group of any size. But there's a lot of support for what we're doing here. Broad-based, and it's based on those things that Sandy and I have been talking about today.
So I'd love for you to give us a sneak peek into, to the extent of what what's next for this partnership. I know there's cultural work being done. I'm sure there's a lot of work on a high level planning, with boards. But in terms of the current students who are enrolled in Cambridge College, will they receive their degrees from Cambridge College? At what point do they become Bay Path students? What are some of the on the ground nuts and bolts here?
I think when we entered upon this, Brian, neither Sandy nor I fully knew the federal regulatory process, which has changed starting in January. And I'll just characterize it now as a two-step process. A change of control is started, and then there's a review period for 12 to 24 months before it's finalized. Encompassed within that would be state regulatory authority for degree authority, and then regional accreditation, and whatever other professional accreditations one might have with education and things of that sort. So this is a highly regulated process. So what is true now is that Cambridge College continues with its own degree authority until those final approvals are given. And what we've done is notified the students that are here of the process that is on the way. And then when it's finalized and at various points along the way, we'll alert them to that. So students this June will graduate from Cambridge College, and then for some time after that. And then Bay Path, when it completes the acquisition, will decide the form of whether it's a Cambridge College at Bay Path or whatever, how that's going to be express that. And I'll yield over to Sandy to kind of answer that and to correct any errors that I made in my summary here.
No, no, Steve, that was beautiful. Higher education is a highly regulated industry, as you know, Brian. And I call it an industry intentionally because it's a very deliberate, thoughtful industry focused on students and focused on ensuring that that they're able to achieve their dreams. And so we really need to make sure that we're doing everything appropriate to make sure that their learning and degree programs are not interrupted. And Steve, you articulated that very nicely, so thank you.
Sandra, have you hired any consulting firms or external groups at this point to guide you and your board of trustees through what lies ahead over the next 2 years or so?
Oh, absolutely. So we've hired law firms, we've hired consultants, we've hired change management professionals, we've hired HR professionals, to help us with the regulatory and the legal, pieces of everything. So the answer is yes, we have multiple. And both Steve and I are very conscious of the fact that we need to run our own institutions, even as we're doing this integrated planning. So, in terms of the integration, we have a team of 4 here. They have their counterparts at Cambridge College, another 3 or 4. And then there are, what we're calling functional leads. So the person in charge of HR, the person in charge of enrollment, the person in charge of, marketing, all of these different functions that we each have individually. We have these teams coming together and saying, all right, what are best practices? How are we going to move forward so that, again, with students at the center, we're making good decisions for students to create more opportunities, at the same time being very careful around redundancies.
It's so helpful. I mean, really clear to me that these type of partnerships, all the details aren't ironed out, years in advance. So there's a certain amount of planning that has to get done. You move forward with the merger, and then there's still many more details that need to be worked out in the process of which, and that could be really stressful. I can imagine.
Yeah, I would say the most important thing, Brian, is mindset, right? The mindset around innovation, the mindset around opportunities for, students and learners, the opportunities for growth. How do we best serve our Hispanic populations? How do we best serve our other populations that are primarily first generation students of color? And when you have that at the center and you have your values at the center, then it really helps to streamline your decision making.
Just a big lofty question out there. What are your hopes and dreams in terms of the impact that this particular merger could have on the landscape of higher education?
Oh, there's so much to say about that, Brian. So Bay Path, we were situated in Long Meadow, Massachusetts, and we had students coming from New England, but primarily our residential campus consists of students from, I would say, the tri-state area: Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, a little bit of New York. Now, of course, we've got students from Texas and California, but that's not the core.
Yeah.
And then our innovative online program, which was developed and created over 10 years ago with the help of the federal government, that program, meeting the needs of adult women who were unable to complete their degrees, is just fills my heart with joy. My mother was a student that returned to college after having raised a family, and so I really identify with the needs and the joys, frankly, of that population. And then our graduate students, and so primarily graduate degrees in health sciences. So think about physician assistant, occupational therapy, DMP, those programs, as well as masters of education, a whole range, ABA and others. So those were the populations that we served. Our graduate programs, primarily online, national. And then think about the new opportunities that are being created through this partnership. So now we will have a presence in the eastern part of the state, where frankly the population is much higher than in the western part of the state. Now we will have those partnerships that Cambridge College has developed in terms of business to business opportunities. How do we partner effectively, efficiently, affordably with employers who we know their needs are changing even as their workforce is changing? I mean, think about COVID. COVID upset, the apple in so many different directions, but we know that it really impacted employers. Think about Puerto Rico. We see Puerto Rico, one, as an extension of our commitment to Hispanic serving, but also as the gateway to Latin America. So, an exciting opportunity. And then Cambridge College has a terrific, robust international student population, which we are planning to grow and build. Boston is the number 2 city in America in terms of desirability for international students. New York is number 1, Boston is number 2. So, how do we think about providing more opportunities, again, affordable, accessible to an international population? So, think about this footprint, think about the opportunities. We've gone from a regional college really to a national and international university. It's been thrilling. It has been thrilling, and we're just getting started. And President Healey and his team have just been remarkable partners.
Your excitement is jumping out of the screen, and I'm thrilled to see where this goes. President Healey, I always like to give our audience a little advice as we come towards the end of our episode here. And if there are any current college presidents out there listening and might be thinking about the type of bold and innovative action that Sandra mentioned is needed, what type of advice might you give a president listening out there about a potential merger?
Sandy used the term courage earlier, so that would be maybe a starting point to make sure that there is sufficient, and not just courage of one person, but courage of an action group with board support to undertake this sort of work. It's not for the faint of heart. And then second, it's hardly advice, but it's really urgently necessary, is to find someone like Cambridge has found in Bay Path and that I've found in Sandy, that has total integrity and that do what they say and that honors their word. It's a really big deal. These are hard times and deals to work out. There's a lot going on. There could be a lot of time for things to go off the rails. And what you need is the ability to pick up the phone and call the president on the other side and talk openly. And anytime I've done that, Sandy's taken it, and we've never found anything we couldn't talk through. So those would be some top line things. And then, of course, and maybe you should have said it first because it's what it's all about, make it about the learners at your institution and their future. Most of them are a bit younger than us, so they have a longer future in mind. And we want to give them an education that will help them claim their world. And doing it this way is an amazing way to do it. I was so excited to hear Sandy talk about all those innovations that are possible in the coming together of these two institutions. So every opportunity she identified as somebody's life being affected, somebody's community being affected, somebody's family being affected for the good and for the permanent work we do in their lives.
I love this so much. Really so profound. Starting off, making it about the students, this clear communication and this mindset. As you had said, Sandra, earlier, having this mindset, there's nothing you can't overcome. But then these words, total integrity. Maybe that could be our next podcast we could all do together, total integrity. But I like that idea. We end every episode on Visionary Voices by asking our guests to pick a song to add to our playlist. We have a Spotify playlist that we'll be releasing at the end of the season. And the song should encapsulate, the spirit of your particular college. In this case, perhaps it'll encapsulate the spirit of this merger. But we'll start with you, Steve. Do you have a song you want to add to the season's playlist?
I had a bunch. I was over here in my car listening to songs. I think Sia's Unstoppable
Awesome.
is really like on the mark for Cambridge College.
I love it. We're adding Sia. And how about you, President Doran? A song to add to the playlist that encapsulates the spirit of Bay Path.
Brian, like Steve, it's harder to settle on one song. When I think about all of the profound songwriters, song singers, that have gone before us and that are still here. To pick out just one, I'm going through Beyonce in my head. I'm going through the Beatles. I'm going through Tracy Chapman. You name it, I'm going through it. I think I'm going to settle in the moment on "Walking on Sunshine" by Katrina and the Waves.
I love it. I love it. I think our audience could hear it, walking in sunshine in the background as we speak. I can't thank the two of you enough for your time today. This has really been a special episode of this podcast to have two presidents on here talking with us about a merger and how it comes about, some of the key things that you need to be considering with those mergers. And I know I, along with my audience, will be listening and watching with great interest and here to support anything as you advance forward. Visionary Voices, the College President's Playbook, is part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed marketers and admission professionals find their next big ideas and feature a huge selection of the industry's best. As your hosts, learn from Artis Cadu, Jamie Hunt, Allison Tercio, and so many more of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.